Are you a morning person? Because I think King David was. Morning for him was this great time to wake up and look up and start the day fresh. Join us today to see what that actually looks like. All right, welcome to our Psalm series. Glad you are joining us today. The last Psalm we did in our last lesson, we talked about Psalms 4, and it was considered an evening psalm. David left us with this in verse 8, I will both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, will make me dwell in safety. So it was considered a nighttime psalm, but the psalm for today that we're going to talk about is considered a morning psalm. Now I'll have to give you my cute little morning joke. One morning, a family woke up to a snowstorm that had happened overnight. There was a mother of 3 small children, and she had gone outside and she was shoveling the snow off of her driveway. A neighbor saw her and came over and said, "Why isn't your husband helping you?" And she said, "Well, someone needed to stay inside with the 3 little kids. So we drew straws, and I got the straw that said I needed to come outside and do this." And he said, "Well, I'm so sorry that you got the short end of that stick." And she started laughing and she said, "Are you kidding? Don't feel sorry for me." She goes, "I actually won. I get to come outside and not be inside with screaming kids." She said, "So I'm actually shoveling really slowly." I love that. But things like that happen in the morning. You wake up to something and you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened overnight? Now, the reason why I like this particular psalm is kind of what we just talked about with that little joke, is that sometimes when things happen, you don't know what to do. It's morning. You're like, oh my gosh, everything might be changing today. But I love this psalm because it gives us hope for the day. Not fear, but hope. Hope and expectation. Now for me, I'm actually a morning person. My mind is really fresh in the morning. My brain works in the morning. I always look forward to the new day. Night, night not so well. One day last week, I was walking out to turn on the water in a fountain that's outside in front of our house. And about 15 minutes later, I was like, oh, I need to go turn that water off. And I went back out there and the water had already been turned off. So I went in and I said, "Rob, did you turn the water off?" And he's like, "No, I didn't." And I realized that somewhere in those 15 minutes, I turned the water off, but I actually don't remember doing it. So that's what happens to my brain at nighttime, okay? But mornings just work. Like I would have remembered that I turned the fountain off if, in the morning, but at nighttime it wasn't gonna work for me. So anyway, let's pick up with Psalms chapter 5. Starts off this, to the chief musician with flutes, a psalm of David. Now, last week we've been telling you all through the Psalms that a psalm is like a poem or wording that would be set to music. And so we know from this that King David wrote this psalm, and this was going to be set to music where flutes would be playing. Verse 1 says this, "Give ear to my words, O Lord, consider my meditation." Now the word meditation can mean groaning. He's saying, God, give ear to my groanings as I talk to you this morning. We begin our day by saying, God, I'm waking up and I know that I have all these tasks that have to be done today. I know that there's things in my life that I need to deal with today. And so the first thing we do is not try to hold on to those ourselves, but we give that over to God first thing in the morning. Verse 2 says, "Give heed to the voice of my cry, my God and my King, for to you I will pray." I love how David says this. He says, my God and my King. God is so incredibly personal to him. He knows him. He trusts him. I remember that one of the books that literally changed my life was Chuck Swindoll's book on the life of David. Because as I read it, I was so shocked. I was so shocked that God was so intimately involved with everything that David did on a day-to-day basis. I don't know why that surprised me, but it just did. Verse 3 says this, "My voice you shall hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning, I will direct it to you and I will look up." In the morning, this is what people do. They usually go first and get a cup of coffee. Some people like to watch the sunrise with a cup of coffee. Now, for me, I wouldn't have coffee in there. I would have like peppermint hot chocolate or Dr. Pepper. Like those are my two go-to things in the morning. So I would sit by the sunrise with one of those two things. But I thought this was cute. Mark Lowry, he said he's not a morning person, so he wouldn't like get up and have a cup of coffee, whatever, at the sunrise. So he said what he did is he decided to name his bed the Word. So when someone called early in the morning, he'd say, I can't talk right now. I'm in the Word. I love that. I was like, that's kind of cute. Psalm 88:13 says this, but to you I have cried out, O Lord, and in the morning my prayer comes before you. See, I think the morning is this great time to like reset for the day. Reset from the day before, knowing that, you know what, God just may show up today. Today may be the day where I get the job, or I find out I'm pregnant, or we get the house, or we find this, or whatever it is. It's like that day where it's like there's this expectation that God just really could show up today. Knowing that yesterday's gone. How I acted yesterday, what I did, it's gone. There's just something new about mornings. I love what David said in verse 3, my voice you shall hear in the morning. It's not like, you know what, God, if I have time, I'm just going to maybe, say good morning. It's not like, hey, God, if I have a time, I'm just going to scan through a quick little devotional. Hey, God, if I have time, I may sit down and read my Bible for a minute. David is very methodical. He wakes up first, and the first thing he does is use his voice to talk to God. Oh, Lord, in the morning, I will direct it to you. I will look up. Now, I love this because David's not going to look around at all of his problems. He's not going to look inside like, oh, I feel this and I feel bad and I feel. He's not going to do that. He's not going to look out into the TV screen and see the news and see what's going on. He's not going to turn on his computer and actually like look at what's happening in the world of social media. The first thing that David does is look up. God, I'm looking up to you today. I heard a pastor talk about this one time. He said he used to wake up and the first thing he would do was grab his phone beside his bed and he would look at it. He would look at texts, he would look at emails, he would look at what's going on in the world. And suddenly he said, I just felt anxious. Every morning I would wake up, I would feel anxious. So he said he finally realized what the problem was and he made it a policy to never look at anything on his phone, anything on TV, anything on his computer until after he opened his Bible, prayed, and looked up. And I thought that was a great idea. And that actually helped me. Make God first. The first thought coming out of your head in the morning should be Him. Verse 3, my voice you shall hear in the morning. Oh Lord, in the morning I will direct it to you and I will look up. Now, it seems like David needs to look up because there's a lot of bad stuff going on around him. And this psalm, God wants us to realize that God sees the evil that's going on around us. And David reminds us of this in the next verse. For you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness, nor shall evil dwell with you. The boastful shall not stand in your sight. You hate all workers of iniquity. You shall destroy those who speak falsehood. The Lord abhors the bloodthirsty and deceitful man. See, David was dealing with a lot of really bad stuff in his life. If this was a psalm that was about Absalom, his son, that had come in and taken over his throne, and David was on the run, there was a lot of evil and wicked people that were in his life and a lot of evilness going on. If this was about Saul, when Saul came in and was trying to kill David before he could become king, there was a lot of evil going on around him too. And this was just a reminder. David wrote, God, I know you hate that. I know you hate the evil that's going on around me. See, sometimes we look around at our world and we say, where is God? Doesn't He see this? Why is He allowing this to happen? We have evil people. We have sex trafficking and rape and murder and violence. And we see all of that all the way can be traced back to Adam and Eve. When they decided to choose listening to a slithering snake we know as Satan over what God told them to do. And from that moment on, the world has been thrown into sin. There's wickedness and evil and sickness and heartache, but that was never God's intention. His intention has always been for good. So whatever point in David's life was that he wrote this David knew this. He woke up and he realized he knew God would deal with them in the end. Whoever it was that was after David, David said, I just know God is going to deal with them in the end. And that's why he wrote that. God hates workers of iniquity. Know this, whoever's bothering you, whoever's doing something evil to you or gossiping or hurting you in any way, none of this goes unnoticed to God. None of it. Here's what I want to just throw in here. God offers salvation to everyone, even evil workers of iniquity. Because no matter who we are, whether we're religious or whatever, or evil, God is offering to us salvation through one way. And that is through Jesus alone. John 14:6 says, Jesus said to him, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I just want to remind you that that door is open to everyone, even that evil, wicked person that's hurting you. Think of David, the author of Psalms. He was and still did evil things in his life. He did some wonderful, marvelous things, and he was considered a man after God's own heart. But you know what he did? He did stupid stuff. He had an affair with Bathsheba, who was married to one of his soldiers. When Bathsheba became pregnant with David's child, David made sure that her husband would die on the battlefield so he could have her. See, that's pretty evil and that's pretty wicked and twisted. And yet, God still, he didn't say, I hate you for the rest of your life. He said, David, I'm offering you something. I'm offering you to repent, to turn from your sin, to come to me. And that same offer is for you and I today. It's fascinating that we have a choice in the matter. And we can choose to give our life to Jesus and live for him and wake up in the morning and look up and have him intimately involved in our life. That is an amazing thing. So we see David as he moves from talking about these wicked people to talking about people who love God, especially him at this point. Verse 7 says this, but as for me, I will come into your house in the multitude of your mercy. In fear of you, I will worship towards your holy temple. He's saying, for me, I know I do stupid stuff. But you know what, God, in the morning, I'm going to turn that over. I want to walk into your house and I want to say, God, I'm giving everything to you. I'm trusting you. And I'm going to worship you. Verse 8 says this, lead me, O Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before my path. I love that. Lead me, God. Make my path straight. Because if this was a time when Absalom, his son, had taken the throne and David was on the run, I think he's saying, God, what do I do about that? You have to lead me because I don't know what to do with me, my family, my people. What do I do? You got to lead me, God. If it was about Saul when Saul was trying to kill him, same thing. God, he's after me. He's coming after me. I'm trying to hide. I don't know where to go. God, I need you to lead me. Some of us, we wake up in the morning and we go, God, I need to make a big choice today. I don't know what to do. I need you to lead me. I need you to make one choice bigger than the other choice. So by tonight when I go to bed, I'm going to have so much confidence that you told me what to do. Because all of our life, there's choices to make. All of our life, there's trials in our life, and they come in different forms for different people. But no matter what our trials are, we need to make sure that God is leading and guiding, and we go to him first thing in the morning with that cup of coffee. Verse 9 says this, for there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is destruction. Their throat is an open tomb. They flatter with their tongue. Pronounce them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against you. I love this. David's like, God, the people that are hurting me, they're really hurting you. Like they're listening to people who they shouldn't listen to, and they're coming against me, but really, ultimately, God, I'm your child. They're coming against you. And here's what he says. Their actions proved they were rebelling against God himself. Because God set David to be king. And all these people were coming around and trying to destroy him. But what's amazing is God is so powerful that he can make sure the wicked fall by their own counsels. Absalom, his son, fell. Saul fell. The people that hurt you can fall. God can do that in 1 second. But David knew this. David hands over his enemies to God, knowing that he alone will dispense justice. See, we have to remember that. God says, vengeance is mine, I will repay. Don't you repay someone, I will repay them. And then we can do this, verse 11. But let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them ever shout for joy because you defend them. Let those who also love your name be joyful in you. He's saying, God, I know you're going to defend me. And because you defend me, I can be joyful. Verse 12, for you, O Lord, will bless the righteous. With favor you will surround him as with a shield. So all that, the Psalms tells me this. In the morning, let's start there. We have a choice to wake up sad, discouraged, turn on the news, turn on social media, look at our phones, or we can stop and wake up and look up and give God our day and say, God, will you handle this day for me? Because we can go before God humbly, just like David. And then we can say, God, whatever you answer me, I'm going with that today. But the point is that there is this great, incredible privilege that you and I have, that we can wake up in the morning and talk to the God of the universe. That's a big thing. And it's an amazing picture when we look at this, what he said, you surround me like a shield. What a great way to start a day. Knowing God, talking to him, and knowing he's got your back. Hope that helps you today. Have a good day.